Hey guys, welcome back to another video here. I'm posting every day on this channel, so that's why I'm making this. So, to get super transparent with you guys, I almost did not upload today on my main channel, which is my Shashi Dean AI operations channel. And the reason for that was because I didn't have enough creative energy, and I have this mentor who helps me with flow state. You're more prone to access flow state in the beginning of the day. And so the mistake I made was learning in the beginning of the day instead of working, right? And I always do this because I fall into this mental trap where I think I don't know enough. And I feel like, and for some reason I sell myself on learning to make the video better. To make myself more wise, to make myself more intelligent, when that's not true, right? It actually dumbs me down because I lose my creative energy. We have more energy in the beginning of the day. And a lot of people say, well, I feel groggy, etc. I learned this from my mentor. It's better to access flow state when you feel groggy, in a way. Because that's when you're in a state of theta, delta. And so since your thoughts are so empty and you're not overthinking, overanalyzing, when you lock in on one thing without a bunch of tabs open, without any distractions, and you're just focused on one thing, you so easily lock in. You very easily lock in on that task. And he also mentions you want to prepare for the task the day before, right? So everything should be prepped before starting the task you want to enter flow state for, right? And it should be a creative task. If it's a mechanical task, yes, this applies as well. Honestly, it applies both ways, right? But yeah, you have more focus in the beginning of the day, essentially, right? And you'll have more creative outputs. So yeah, that was the mistake I made today. And it was very hard for me to complete my video, like form my video, not record the video, but form it. Like I have to produce it before I record. Like I have to build out the systems. Yeah, my brain was not braining, it wasn't operating the way it should. And it was frustrating. And so what I realized was my brain was stressed out. And so I went for a sauna session and I de-stressed my brain, my body, and I came back and I was able to enter flow state again. But moral of the story is you're much better off just doing it in the beginning of the day instead of wasting time, right? So my system now, or it's been this system every single day, but for some reason I fell into this hole where I'm like, let me learn. So it starts with working, recovering, working again, recovering again, and then learning at the end of the day. Because the learning doesn't really require that much mental energy. But when you're learning, of course, you want to be engaged as well, not just consuming what you're learning from, but also taking notes, making personal connections. That way you're telling your brain that the information is relevant. Elon Musk said this himself. Someone asked, Elon, how do you remember things? How do you remember so many things? What do you do? What's your protocol? He said, if you want to remember anything, you have to make it relevant, because your brain tries to forget as many things as possible. When you go to sleep, guess what your brain does? It discards, it deletes anything that is not relevant to the mission. So you're either purpose-driven or pleasure-driven, right? So if you're chasing pleasure, you're going to remember all the pleasurable things you've gone through because that's what you're chasing. But if you're chasing purpose, well, different story, right? But still, when you're consuming information, and Naval Ravikant says this. He says, reading is faster than listening, doing is faster than watching, And then I added on top of this, talking is faster than writing. And the reason I say this here with you guys is because I used to always write stuff down, spend a lot of time writing, putting effort towards it. But what takes less effort? Talking, right? So this is kind of a journal session for me here. And I'm making it public, right? And before this video, and even before the main video I posted on my main channel, on my AI operations channel, I went on Notion. Instead of writing on Notion like I typically do, I tapped the microphone button on my journal template where I write my journal sessions, and I started talking. So whatever I wanted to write about, I spoke instead. And guess what? It took less effort to do. If I were to write, I would go da 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 da, right? And before typing, I used to write, like manually write. And then I went into typing. Now we're talking, and Notion is writing for me. And now, this is so important. The reason this is so important is because Notion writes it out for me. If I ever need to go back on the journal session, I can read it. I'm not listening to it, I'm reading it, right? I used to capture what I wanted to say on voice memos. And when I captured it, I'd have to listen to it, right? Whether that's at 1x speed, 1.5x speed, 2x speed, whatever. At the end of the day, it's actually still slower than reading. So I made a more efficient system. I say what I want to write, it writes it out for me, and then I read it after, right? Technology is advancing, you got to use it. Now, there are so many things you don't need to know. You don't need to know how the internet was created or how the internet works. You just need to know how to use it. And what I'm trying to say here is we pay attention to unnecessary information, right? Our ancestors did work with hyper focus on innovating the next big thing. Now our job is to pick up on our ancestors' work and to double it. Put something else on top, innovate on top of it. That should be our goal. Not to worry about how they did it, what were all the intricacies of it. That's a complete waste of time. A complete waste of time. And so we all need to focus on one thing. There's a book called The One Thing. I love it. It's one of my favorite books ever. It teaches you the art of focus. Another great book is Atomic Habits. Habits build identity. It builds who you are, right? And it's how you form mastery. There's a book called Mastery by Robert Greene. It's such a spiritual thing. Robert Greene is the guy who made 48 Laws of Power. You probably know him. He also made another great book called The Art of Seduction, also really good. But in the book Mastery, he talks about how masters, people who have mastered a specific skill, intuitively know what to do next in the particular skill that they've mastered, right? So they can predict, they can make assumptions because they've mastered this one skill. And so essentially, habits can create mastery if you really, really, really focus on it, right? And what's the word I'm looking for here? You have to go through deliberate practice, super intentional practice that is extremely painful. And when you avoid pleasure and you focus on the work itself, you start enjoying the effort involved in the work. So you re-engineer, you recalibrate your emotional circuitry. You completely change it, right? You rewire your brain. And this has to do with dopamine. You guys have probably heard of the word dopamine everywhere. Andrew Huberman, everyone's talking about it. And I'm so glad there's so much awareness around dopamine. It helped me so much. It helped me so much. Dopamine detox is super important, right? And defying pleasure is the hardest part. because there's so much abundance and pleasure in so many forms. I'm not even going to mention it and go into it, but it's everywhere, right? So that's the hardest part. Once you master that, then work becomes so much easier. When you can't master that, then you're never going to get creative work done. Instead, you're going to be given instructions on what to do, and you're going to be a worker. I'm hoping to attract a business audience here, right? It's much easier to take instructions. It's much easier to be given a format on what to do. It's much harder to take risks on things you come up with, right? Now, I'm not a big believer on creating the next big thing. It's always good to replicate and then iterate. And so even replicating a business that has been done before is still a very risky thing for people to do. They'd rather just take instructions instead, right? I recommend you guys go mess up and try all the get rich quick stuff and all the different weird methods of making money. Because I've tried it myself, I've screwed up, and I've made a bunch of mistakes. I recommend you guys go screw up as well, because it'll teach you so many things. Whatever you think works, and you haven't tapped into the business market yet, go and fail. It's the fastest way to learn. Go and fail and screw up and come back, and you will figure out that there is no get rich quick. Okay? So if you think there is, go crush that belief by trying it out. Okay? The only way to really enter business is by actually making a real business. It's by actually being an expert in something. You have to build expertise. So what I'm focused on is being an operations analyst. And the reason I have so many insights on operations is because I've worked in a business. And not just in the business, but also, like one of the top positions in the business. I went from salesman to, I went from setter, appointment setter, to triager, which is like the middleman between setter and closer, to triage coach, or triage coach and consultant, to an appointment setting coach. So I started coaching the entire appointment setting team. And all while doing this, I was in very good hands, obviously. And I was in direct connection with the people who were running the company, the CEO, the operations manager, the top closer, the top closer and the closer coach, everyone inside. And I also networked with other entrepreneurs who were in the online world by going into in real life, in-person events. So pretty much masterminds. And I would hear the conversations. I would try to contribute, but I didn't really have anything to contribute. I would just kind of listen in. And I learned so many gems. So many gems, man. I met really, really cool people, saw how they operate, and they all try to eat the same stuff. They all try to do the same boring things every day. They're super disciplined on that. And that's really the magic formula. And also, I would honestly add on top of that, unique experiences has a lot to do with success as well. It's usually the people who go through the most pain make the most, who create the best things, right? Or, become ultra successful. I'm not going to talk about what I went through, because this isn't some like traumatic dump that I'm going to be putting on you guys. But painful past helps, right? So I say I had a pretty painful past. I would say that had a lot to do with my success on YouTube at an early age, and even with what I'm doing right now. It kind of all stems from all that, right? The hunger to make change in life. That's where it all stems from, right? Hopefully I wasn't covering the camera. If I was, I apologize. But thanks for watching, you guys. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button if you want to see more of me on your home feed. Take care.